everyone to come out on August 5th and learn about our community resources that we have here, such as Helpline House, Bainbridge Youth Services, Housing Resources Bainbridge, Bainbridge Prepares, and our area public safety partners. This event takes place on August 5th at Waterfront Park from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. And of course, there will be food, fun, and face painting. So thank you for your continued support.
different tools and many different approaches. This requires many different zoning types and different kinds of strategies. This will allow us to responsibly and carefully increase our supply of housing. Housing creates homes where caring neighbors and contributing individuals can thrive. The Planning Commission has recommended increases in the Ferry District and High School Road District as elements of the Winslow Sub-Area Plan, but let's not stop there. Changes can be considered in other sub-areas as well. Let's use this opportunity to increase our housing diversity. Please answer the question posed by the Planning Commission that you are in favor of the Planning Commission continuing to make development standard recommendations in additional areas of the Winslow sub-area. I'd like to end by expressing my thanks both to the Planning Commission and to you as City Council for your leadership and vision for our community that is accessible to households of caring people who come from all incomes. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Melanie Keenan.
Good evening. My name is Melanie Keenan, and I'm a geologist, hydrogeologist. I'd like to discuss the draft summary groundwater management plan and present some of the problems. The statement on page 13 is not accurate. With modest growth assumptions and changes in climate, the island's water supply for human consumption is secure for the 20-year planning horizon and resilient for the 50-year horizon. 1. Staff and PC are working with accelerated growth alternatives for expansion and upzoning of Winslow. According to the DEIS and other documentation, more than doubling the population of BI is required to plan for, not modest. The 20-year horizon is not long enough window for sustainable planning, especially when you consider the consultant did not collate existing well data to document drawdown of aquifers since the 2011 USGS comprehensive study. For Bainbridge, the EEA model downplays loss of recharge with increased population development and climate change, not in keeping with best available science. 50 years is a more realistic time frame for groundwater planning. With modeling scenarios, the average impacts are the most statistically likely outcomes for predicting future water needs. Think average height and weight. You should not base reporting on underestimating changes to recharge with growth and expected climate changes as seen in EA's low impact scenario. The mid-impact scenario represents statistical averages reflective of scientific standards for modeling, the most reliable prediction. Secure and resilient does not equate to sustainable. There is no equilibrium. Existing well data and stream monitoring already document worrisome drawdown of aquifers and loss of recharge with existing population. You will continue to draw down the aquifers and reduce stream flow even if you do not grow the island. Most notable mid-impact on page 9 for the deep sea level aquifer, where the sea level aquifer and the FBA Fletcher Bay are the main production aquifers used for BI water supply. Impact on mean groundwater levels is minimal. However, south end production wells drop below sea level by year 50, equals increased risk for seawater intrusion, not resilient. Glacial marine aquifer also problematic. Most concerning is the Fletcher Bay aquifer, which supplies approximately 30% of water to Bainbridge Island. Drawdown estimates in 20 to 50 years exceeds established early warning levels of less than 1/2 foot per year, which is not protective enough of the aquifers. It is not accurate to state the supply is secure and resilient. You do not need to be a scientist to grasp these basic facts. For 20 years, up to 16-foot decrease in mean groundwater level exceeds early warning levels of less than 10 feet over this time period. For 50 years, up to 37-foot decrease and 60-foot decreases is in excess of early warning levels for less than 25 feet in 50 years. It would be helpful to have ETAC review these documents to ensure the information to the community is accurate. Thank you.
Thank you. And last is Malcolm Gander. Oh, no, okay. Is there anyone who didn't get a chance to speak? Okay, we have one on virtually, right? Okay.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Sorry about that. Yes, we can.
Oh, good, thanks. Hi, Mayor Matthews and City Council members and City Manager. Thanks again for all the work that you do. My name is Dawn Jano, and I'm on the South End. And I'm here tonight to ask you to consider, there are social services on Bainbridge Island. It's been interesting. I'm not on the island right now, but hearing the comments tonight, I just want you guys to always take a broader and deeper, more personal look into our community as we inform decisions moving forward. And, Helpline House has seen a huge rise in the number of islanders requiring its services and assistance. Island Family Caregivers is running on an extremely low budget, and without the work of dedicated volunteers, many of our vulnerable seniors would be without compassionate means of care. Bainbridge Youth Services also serves a population we don't always take into consideration, but everyone deserves a place to feel safe and supported on Bainbridge. HRB is currently doing the hard work of affordable housing, gradually adding and integrating housing into the fabric of our community. We should look to continue to partner and financially support their efforts and the population they know so well. My concern is that we don't have the medical or clinical facilities, mental health or emotional health services necessary to meet the needs of many of the people already on the island. And we don't have enough home care services. And, we certainly don't have a dollar store. So when we talk about affordable housing, I'm hoping that we can continue to address the very real resources that those folks need. And when we talk about the character of Bainbridge, I'm hoping we do talk about its people, caring for people at all income levels who are already our neighbors. And I believe the city should, along with its traffic, environmental, and infrastructure studies, do an assessment of the social, emotional, and commercial services that meet or do not currently meet the needs of our lower income folks. So I would like to see the city provide additional resources to our nonprofit social service agencies to support our partners and help those organizations help our neighbors as rapidly as possible. I believe we cannot humanely plan for a large low-income project on the scale proposed at Winslow 625. The term workforce housing is being used, but we are talking about folks between 30 and 60 AMI. Again, please look closely at that Lehigh agreement. Without the medical, social, and other assistance programs that will help these folks at those levels really thrive. And along with simply considering policy, potential grant money, infrastructure, traffic zoning, and more, I urge you to take a strong, hard, honest look at our priorities. Do we currently have enough medical, social, sustenance and assistance programs to help our current population who earns below $50,000 a year? I'm going to try and wrap it up here. So I'm just asking to avoid potential futures down the road that we take a look beforehand to really see, to make sure that when people come here, that they are able to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And seeing no more testimony from the public comment is closed. Next, we are on to item 5, which is our consent agenda. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, I'd like to request the removal of item 5C, meeting minutes from 2 meetings for separate consideration after the consent agenda is approved.
Okay, Councilmember Murawaki.
So I will move the approval of the consent agenda with removal of item 5C for further discussion.
Okay, motion made by Councilmember Murawaki, seconded by Councilmember Dietz. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and now we are on to item 5C. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I simply want to call attention to action that was taken in the July 15th study session. Ordinarily, we don't make motions in the study session. In this case, it was a motion of a very limited sort, simply moving forward to the Planning Commission business that that has rested with the council. The motion read as follows. I move to forward a request for revised development regulations to the Planning Commission for development of an ordinance for City Council consideration. and that motion passed, a vote of 5-2. It simply gave the Planning Commission a simple task to provide for the necessary dimensional standards and FAR allowance already decided upon for the Ferry District. And I'm a believer in simple and prompt communication between the council and the Planning Commission. That's what we were accomplishing. It wasn't an endorsement of the project design as presented. These things are still very much open to discussion and modification, but certain work needed to be done. And it's not a heavy task or a complicated task for the Planning Commission. The public needs to understand we were not forcing something to happen ahead of a proper schedule. Move to now approve that item.
City Council.
The City Council minutes for the two meetings of July 8th and July 15th as presented in the agenda packet.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Motion made by Deputy Mayor Quitland, seconded by Councilmember Dietz. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, next we are on to council announcements. Councilmember Morwaki.
Thank you, Mayor Matthews. This is not council, but a lot of joined about 3,100 of our fellow citizens in the wonderful Rotary auction. It was a record more than 1,300 more volunteers than normal. And the amount, if you haven't heard, it's the first time they've gotten over seven figures. It was $1,018,718.75, which is nearly $200,000 more than last year's record amount. I wonder what this means. I think it's the generosity of not only our community, but I think people coming to this wanting to support our community in a great way. And by the way, that money is a gross amount. I mean, gross in total. It's not gross because it's ugly. It's a wonderful looking number. It's going to be after expenses. I don't know what it's going to probably be. It'd probably be in the 850,000 range or so, but that's still, that'll be almost as much money as netted last time. So it's just an extraordinary thing. I think a lot of congratulations to the Rotary and all the volunteers. I put in 62 hours. I don't know how that happened, but it happened. Anyway, thanks for everybody who supported and people who listening in the community. Thanks for all those who volunteered for this. And then the rest of you who came and gave generously to Rotary, which eventually will feed to our community and beyond.
Thanks, Councilmember Dietz.
Thank you, Mayor. And well, yeah, thank you, Councilmember Morwaki, for mentioning the Rotary auction. So at the volunteers, there was a picnic for us. I volunteered too. And there was a picnic for us at Battle Point last Sunday. And they gave us the facts, you know, the amount that we received. But what was, that was kind of funny. There was a lead up of before that big number was announced. And they said, here's an important number, like 983 donuts were eaten by volunteers. And he said, okay, next year, can we hit 1,000? So, so anyway, I'll leave it at that. Few things I want to mention. Last week on July 16th, I attended on behalf of Bainbridge Island a very interesting climate resilient communities roundtable. It was put together by the C2ES Center for Climate and Energy Solutions, jurisdictions for all over the region. We were looking primarily at the physical impacts of extreme heat and wildfire. And as a result of that, I became aware of and then joined the Puget Sound Climate Preparedness Collaborative, which again, I'll be just part of the representing Bainbridge. So expect some report outs from me on that. Tomorrow, excuse me, I chair the West Sound West Sound Ecosystem Recovery Board. I'm chairing that meeting on behalf of Chairman Forsman tomorrow. We are going to be looking at the Ecosystem Recovery Plan and the 2025 Salmon Project List. So some of the work of Whisper tomorrow. And lastly, I have my council office hours this Saturday. I welcome anyone to come and see me, talk about city business, and that would be great. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilmember Dietz. Okay. Deputy Mayor.
Just two important social events on the weekend. The Land Trust Annual Preservation Partners occasion took place on the Suimatsu Farm property on Manzanita Road. That's not the Day Road property, but a larger property actually that is farmed by a number of individuals, and it was a large crowd of people pledging support for preservation. We are interested in development, but we're also interested in preservation of the lands of high conservation value, and this is a demonstration of that. On Sunday, the middle and into the afternoon of the day, was an around the island cruise put on by the History Museum. A large group of people, not on the Virginia 5 as has been done in the past, but a larger boat. And it was a beautiful day and an opportunity to see the island as it looks from the fish's eye or the orca's eye. We did actually see some orcas in the course of the day. And it was just a reminder of some of the contours of the place we live. I really enjoyed it, as I've done before.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Okay, so let's see, last Wednesday, I attended the Poulsbo City Council meeting where we were discussing our STEP housing discussion on what we want Eco Northwest to study or a project for us, and what their next steps were that we form an interlocal agreement, an ILA. So we were discussing next steps on that. And then Friday, we went on we're able to tour the Eagle Harbor facility with Washington State Ferries and the Puget Sound Regional Council, and really see what all kinds of work gets done there with sometimes limited space and vintage tools from like the 40s and stuff, which was really cool to see. But then we also ended up being the same time that the Wenatchee was about to get ready to take its first voyage. So we got to go in and take a look at all the new batteries, and then got to ride to Seattle and back up in the bridge and then down. So it was my first crossing without coming out of the boat. So it was really cool to see all of the things that happen right here in our community. And then we had our KEDA, which was Kitsap Economic Development Board meeting right before this. So Councilmember Dietz and I just got here just in time, hearing all about things going on around Kitsap County. And then my last request is, this is maybe like a wanted ad. Let's see, maybe you have a colorful t-shirt and an expert bike rider. Maybe it says geezers on the back. I'm looking for, obviously we know Eagle Harbor is closed and the traffic. I live in Linwood Center and just got an e-bike. I'm not a confident bike rider, but I would like to lead or ride with people from the marketplace to go to TNC and maybe get groceries and other things like that and start getting out of our cars. So if there are any expert bikers, might be retired, your time won't be used for free. I mean, you'll be compensated. Just really looking for you. So reach out to me if that sounds like you. That's all I have. Okay, next we have our city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to provide a brief update on the Cooper Creek Fish Passage Project. There's been a lot of discussion about that, and everyone is fully aware. That project is under construction. We're at the demolition stage. The road surface has been removed and excavation is taking place. The excavation will continue and will be lower. Meanwhile, facilities will be put up both ends to prevent water from flowing in to allow for the construction of the base. In terms of impact to traffic, work in the right-of-way at the intersection of Fletcher Bay Road and High School Road was conducted on Thursday, July 17th, about a period between 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. That did produce traffic congestion and traffic did back up. However, other than that period, we have up until now not received reports of traffic congestion or traffic backup. I know personally Traffic has been pretty flowing when I've driven through, but it's added about 3 to 4 minutes to my regular commute time. Recently, we did hear for some reason at 4 o'clock, there is some congestion. So we want to explore that. We don't know why it's at that time or what is occurring. Some people have suggested, and we have looked at temporary signals. The issue with temporary signals is that when the traffic's free flowing at other times, accomplishing a temporary signal for limited duration will just slow the traffic down when it is free flowing, but we were taking a look at that. We have been talking to our contractor about an accelerated schedule. We want to bring the proposal to the council on August the 12th to complete that. We also have been talking to the fire department about an interlocal agency agreement to reimburse the fire district for some additional personnel costs for Station 22, and that is expected to come forward to the council August 12th, assuming that the fire board wants to do that. We also are reviewing internally how we got here. And we want to answer the question, why were we in the public surprised? As you know, being predictable is an important value that we talk about. And in this case, we weren't predictable. So we want to figure that out, find out, was it in the design process? Was it the changeover of staff? Is staff too overworked? Were we too thin? Was it long reviews by outside third agencies? What happened in there? And so we want to conduct a thorough review. We also want to look in terms of going forward into the next phases of this project. Yes, we know that schools will resume. We do hope that we can accelerate this so that the overlap will be minimal. The Eagle Harbor non-motorized project will begin soon, probably closer to the end of August. And we want to let people know that that project is coming. That project will not have a full road closure or a detour, but there will be flag people involved in that, and there will be traffic control. So that also will produce some inconvenience. Again, not as significant as the Cooper Creek. So we have the road project is coming. This project has been designed for years, along with the Fish Passage project. At one time, they were all one project because we didn't feel we could divorce them, but we felt we had to as we got into the permitting stage. We are aware of the backup that occurred on July 17th. We think we've done a lot to mitigate that, but now we're trying to figure out what happened or what's happening at 4 o'clock with that. And we'll continue to monitor this and report back as we can on the progress of the project.
Thanks, City Manager. All right, we're on to regular business, folks. Item 8A, receive second draft of the groundwater management plan and authorize the city manager to enter into professional services agreement with Kita Waters.
Yes, the Public Works Director will just provide a brief background, but really this item is before the council for 2 reasons. One, we want to deliver the plan to the council and the council to have it first. So that's what the point is tonight, is that the public knows the council has the plan. And then we also want the council to approve the engagement with Kita Waters for peer review. And with that, I'll ask Mr. Wierzbicki to go ahead and provide any more information. We're not intending to provide an analysis this evening. That wasn't the point for bringing it forward, but to give it to the council and to move forward to peer review.
Thank you, City Manager. Chris Wierzbicki, Public Works Director. Good evening, Council. As the City Manager mentioned, we are going to give you an overview very briefly of the second draft of the groundwater management plan and a couple other things. We're also going to give you an update on the peer review and allow you to take action on that and to consider that action, and also give you an update on the review process and public engagement schedule. The groundwater management plan second draft was released on Friday in the council packet. It was also included on the city's website and made available to the public. It incorporates a number of different documents. It includes the plan itself. It also includes a plan summary and near-term action memo. If you remember a couple of months back, you approved the stormwater system plan, which also included kind of a public-facing summary of that document that we use for public engagement. We've created a kind of a similar type of approach for the groundwater management plan that we'll be using as a core for some of our public engagement opportunities in the fall. It also includes a groundwater management technical memo. The responses to the comments we received on the first draft, we are still working through those. As you remember, there were 500 of them. So we hope to have those done by next Friday and available both to the council and the general public at that time. We're also still working on the planned appendices. There are a number of appendices with background documents and so forth that will be completed as part of the final document. Here's just a brief look at the summary and near-term action memo. As you can see, it's kind of a more colorful and graphic-heavy document. It includes summaries that were all based on the groundwater management plan on impacts on water for human consumption, impacts on the environment. It also includes a 5-year plan of next steps, something for you all to consider for funding in future years for supporting groundwater management. In terms of peer review, we developed a scope of work for the peer review, which we have refined since you saw it a couple of months ago. It was also reviewed with the subcommittees, and we took their recommendations on putting that together. We have a change of vendor that we are proposing to Kita Waters LP, which is a firm based out of Seattle that was recommended also as one of the firms recommended by the representative from the Suquamish tribe. We've selected this vendor because this reviewer will be able to access the groundwater model via the ModFlow software that it was developed in. So we'll be able to hand over the files to them. They have the software available. They will be able to get in there and review the files themselves. They will also have access to all the documents that we have provided to the public, as well as the comment and response matrix. And then lastly, we do plan to share the peer review discussions both with the subcommittees and the council when we receive it, hopefully around the end of September. Speaking of schedule, this is where we're at right now, right kind of in the middle of our process with the second draft. Upon your consideration this evening, we'll start the peer review later this month, wrap it up in September, and begin our public engagement period in October, and hopefully have the plan for you to adopt in November or very close to the end of the year. So that is our summary of the plan, and we look forward to any discussion you might have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director. Where's Vicky? It's not seeing any lights. Councilmember Dietz.
Yeah, thank you. I'll put my light on. Thank you, Chris, for that. Looking forward to a more thorough analysis of the plan. I know tonight we're just, the motion is just, I shouldn't say just, is to approve the service agreement for the peer reviewer. Taking a look at the draft plan, what that caught my eye was, some among the recommendations was create for 2027, 2028 biennial budget, a staff position dedicated to implementing the groundwater management plan, the recommended action. So I quite like that. Of course, the challenge is how do we afford that? But I think understanding that water is our most precious resource and we're relying on this plan to get us through the next 100 years. Yes, I think this would be a worthwhile investment. And also, I particularly like the focus on promoting water conservation measures. So those two things, I'm very pleased. I would be happy to.
Want to make a motion?
I'd be happy to make a motion. I don't see any more lights on, but we could still have discussion. Okay, so I'll make the motion and we can continue discussion. Okay. I move to authorize the city manager to enter into a professional services agreement with Kita Waters Incorporated for peer review services in the amount of $24,800 $8,266.67 from City Council contingency, $8,266.67 from the Water Utility Fund, and $8,266.67 from the Storm and Surface Water Management Utility Fund.
Second.
Thank you. Motion made by Councilmember Dietz, seconded by Councilmember Moriwaki. Any discussion?
Yeah.
No. Councilmember Moriwaki.
Thank you, Mayor Matthews. First of all, I really like calculators because it can get right down to the last cent. I appreciate that very much. And I also think it's a good way to balance that out because this is an important project. And I think these three sources, and I would believe our city council would believe that using our contingency funds is a good investment for this. The peer review, as Councilmember Dietz was getting to, is really a key component in this whole process. The groundwater plans before us, the draft is there. Now this is the opportunity to have experts say, is this working? Is it correct? Are we hitting the targets? Are the analysis right? That's what this peer review process is about. I'm really looking forward to seeing it happen because I'm looking forward to the outcome and hearing from the experts of what they feel our plan is.
Thanks so much, Councilmember. Thank you, Director Verswicki, for your presentation. I'm really glad to see this go forward. We've been hearing a lot about the groundwater management plan in the public and within these chambers. A peer review is not us. So this is someone else, an outside peer review looking at what's been done and then giving their opinion of what our data looks like, which is very, I think, something that the public will be glad to see. So, Deputy Mayor.
Yes, I'd just like to comment, having read parts of the plan, there were certain places that I wanted to see how the plan had been revised. I took the time to go page by page through parts of the groundwater management plan, and it's clear that it has been, things have been clarified, things have been added. This is more ready for prime time. Some things that I noticed raised questions for me, and I will try to get answers to those questions, but you know, more on the side, not in this meeting. I just think we have come a long ways, and really it is about time to be where we are with this. It's important that we take it in, and I do look forward to public engagement. It's something to study and work with going forward.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. All right, seeing no more lights, we do have a question on, let's see, all those in favor?
Aye.
And none opposed. Okay, seeing no opposition, we move on to our next agenda item, which is consider ordinance 2025-22 related to city advisory groups.
Mayor, I'm going to provide a brief report on this here from my seat. The question for the council is to the introduction of an ordinance related to city advisory groups. You were not asked to take final action tonight, but you're asked to review the ordinance and move it forward to a future meeting to take action. The draft ordinance in front of you is color coded to make it easier to understand. The green code or the green highlighted sections deal with basically three provisions before you. Oh, there's a PowerPoint with this. I didn't even know. The three provisions are, one is to establish bookend size for the commissions, that there be a minimum of 5 members and a maximum of 7 members on each committee. Otherwise, unless it's determined by state law, which really applies to the planning commission, and that's 7 as it is. The second provision is that there only be 1 member of each household may serve on the same committee simultaneously. The third provision in the green is that with the exception of those committees in which administrative staff is assigned for note-taking purposes or minute-taking purposes, which are right now only 2 committee meetings, the planning commission or committees, planning commission and design review, those that deal with property rights, it is requirement that the committee members themselves select someone to take minutes for those meetings. That is the green highlights. You'll see a lot of yellow highlights. The yellow highlights is a cleanup. We are attempting to remove duplicate language from the various sections and move it into chapter 2. This is intended to clean up and make the municipal code more understandable and more easy to follow and more easy to read. And with that, those are the changes that are proposed. Again, you're not being asked to adopt it tonight, but you're asked to deliberate the various changes. And then if the council wishes to move it forward to a subsequent meeting where we would anticipate adoption.
Thanks, City Manager. Not seeing any lights. Councilmember Fantroy Johnson.
I'm going to make the motion. I move to forward ordinance number 2025-22 related to the city advisory groups to a future business meeting for consideration of approval.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion made by Councilmember Fantroy Johnson, seconded by Councilmember Moriwaki. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Next.
Wait a second.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I get it. Okay. And we have 1 nay. Okay. Next, we are on to 8C, receive monthly update on the comprehensive plan and Winslow sub-area plan.
Yes, Mayor, this item is really directed for council consideration of two requests that have come from the Planning Commission for council direction. We are placed this on the agenda and we have a suggested format for your consideration. The makers of the motion, one by Commissioner Sarah Blossom and the other by Commissioner Ben Dine, are included in your packet for you. We have invited and both have agreed, thank you, to attend the council meeting and to talk about their question before the council. Their question in which they're asking the council to weigh in and provide direction to the Planning Commission. The recommendation is that the mayor provide each commissioner 3 to 4 minutes to explain, or as your time you determine appropriate, to explain what the request is. We thought that would be the fairest to the makers of the motion rather than explaining that. Then after that, we have asked our recently retained consultant, Joe Tovar. There was a clever comment I was going to make, but it couldn't quite come to the surface, who has provided an analysis of what the requests are and what the options are to the council to talk about the memorandum that's included in the council packet. At that point in time, staff would welcome questions of Mr. Tovar or perhaps even Commissioner Blossom or Dines, but then we would want to the council to go ahead and proceed to deliberate and provide what your direction is.
Thanks, City Manager. Okay, so we get to, I'm so excited to get to hear from Commissioner Blossom and Dines. We all got to serve on Planning Commission together for several years. And when I was on Planning Commission, we used to interface a lot more in chambers and on Zoom at that time. And so it's something that I've really missed. So first, Commissioner Blossom.
Thank you. I don't know if I'll need 3 minutes. You might have questions for me, though. I want to start with what my motion is not. It is not asking the council to adopt our recommendations for Ferry and High School. I want to be very clear that that is not the point of the motion. It's also not meant to suggest that our work is done in those two zones. We still need to address what programs or potential overlays would apply to ensure that what we've created is affordable. The purpose of my motion is to ask you guys if, since we know we can create enough capacity to work with in the Ferry and High School Road for our House Bill 1220 allocation, do you want us to focus on refining those recommendations in those two districts and only make height and FAR changes in those two districts? Or do you want us to also consider changes to height and FAR in other Winslow districts? And I want you to think of this in terms of the capacity of our existing sewer plant. I think it would be a mistake to add capacity beyond what can be handled by the existing plant. After 2 upgrades, there's capacity for an additional, potential capacity for an additional 2,000 ERUs. For the House Bill 1220 allocation for 80% AMI and below, which need to be mid and low-rise multifamily units on sewer, we need to add 1,139 of those units. When you add that number to the 43 multifamily units that is in our current capacity, those would account for 946 ERUs. When you multiply by the factor of 0.8, when you then also add the existing capacity we have for 549 single-family residences, our total ERUs now add up to 1,495. That leaves 505 ERUs left to accommodate new or expanding commercial uses, like the proposed car wash, which will be discharging the water from the car wash into the sewer system, and any connections for developed properties in the sewer service area that are not yet connected. That is not a lot of wiggle room, especially when you consider that as we're making changes, we don't know the impact of those changes until an analysis is done. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is there's very little capacity in our existing plant that can be allocated towards any housing beyond our 1220 allocation for 80% AMI and below. There's not a lot left for additional market rate housing. And I understand the concerns about trying to focus affordable housing in 2 areas, but remember we have programs like HDDP that Housing Resources can use. They're currently using it for their Erickson community, a project that's 100% affordable. They achieve a density bonus through the HDDP program. Programs that incentivize market rate developers to produce affordable housing must utilize density increases or bonuses. But if we want to meet our 1220 allocation without adding capacity that the existing plant can accommodate, there isn't capacity there to be used on those additional market rate homes that will be built using those increases and bonuses. And when you look at even the changes, our preliminary recommendations for Ferry and High School, we are now beyond the capacity of the plant, and we might have to dial that back. I was given a table for the capacity analysis, and so I just did some math. The mixed-use zones would be 1,958 ERUs. The residential zones, which I assume are single family, I know some might have multifamily, but with what I just had to assume single family. That's 171 ERUs, which is 2,129. So that's over the 2,000 potential ERUs, and that's without any new commercial, and it's not accounting for any developed properties in the sewer service area that might need to connect. I don't think you should be considering, or we should be considering adding capacity beyond what can be treated by the existing plant. Building another plant is a pretty big deal. There's not enough known. Where will it be located? How much will it cost? How's it going to be paid for? Will it cause the city in the future to expand the sewer service area to increase the customer base in order to pay for it? And if the council does think we should go the route of planning for growth beyond the potential capacity of the existing plant, I think that is a policy decision that you guys need to make before asking us to go further. Any questions? Okay.
No, that was so well said. Thank you, Commissioner Blossom. Next. Yep. And you can, if we have questions, like, you're still here. So, Commissioner Dynas.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to kind of elaborate on our questions. First, I'll just frame the context for I think for both of our questions, which is just the timeline. And I know you all know this, but just to set the table, the timeline for the Winslow Sub-Area Plan and the Comprehensive Plan updates, which is to say that we started in January on the process, and my understanding is they were due December of 24, so we kind of already started behind, a little bit behind in terms of the schedule. And now we're starting to kind of face on what we can do by the end of the year, and acknowledging that we really need to make sure that we can get it adopted by the end of the year to avoid the repercussions that may come. So just acknowledging that, and I guess I'll just real quickly say, in terms of affordable housing in our community, people often talk about the unique character of Bainbridge Island, and a lot of that has to do with the physical character and what we see in downtown Winslow. I grew up on the island, and I can say that another big part of the character of the island used to be, and I think to some degree still is, a diverse community where doctors and retail workers and teachers can all live as neighbors in the same community. Right now, if we were to pause kind of the work outside of the high school and ferry districts, I feel like we would leave a lot on the table in terms of being able to provide for that more diverse community. In particular, you may have heard the representatives from HRB mention middle housing. That's something that the Planning Commission has not yet had time to create the development standards for and really promote. And so if we were to just kind of leave things on the table outside of the ferry and high school zones, we would miss a pretty big opportunity in terms of middle housing, which I believe is really the big opportunity for workforce housing. And when I use that term, I mean kind of between 80 and 120 AMI. So The ferry and high school road districts may serve a purpose in terms of a certain typology, in terms of, multifamily housing that might be have opportunities for certain types of subsidies that support the 80% AMI and below. But again, that would just be one typology, wouldn't be providing a kind of diversity of housing options for the community. And one other thing I'll just say is that we, the Planning Commission, have been involved in a very detailed level, I think probably more detailed than is true in some other communities in terms of making recommendations to the staff and the city council. And that detail has been great. I think we have a lot of expertise on the Planning Commission that that can really help weigh in on these issues. But it does create a time constraint because we're volunteers and we have limited time, each month with 2 or 3 meetings each month. And so I believe that we need to start leaning a little bit more on the planning staff and on our consultants that we've hired to advise us through this process. And so my motion was really asking that, just acknowledging the time constraints that we have for the Winslow and comprehensive plan updates, should we, rather than sort of, and again, this is outside of the ferry and high school district, rather than leaving things as they are and waiting to tackle middle housing and other opportunities for a more diversity of housing options in our community, to really lean on the staff preferred alternative that's been recommended that would create some of those opportunities right off the bat. And then I think everybody, I can speak for everybody on the Planning Commission, we want to do more work after this year, whatever that is, whatever we have at the end of this year, we want to continue to work on it. But I'd rather have, I think we'd all feel, I would feel better if we had something in place to start moving forward rather than leaving things where they've been for the past, 10 years or so, because I know we have a lot of great programs in place, but if they were meeting all of the needs that our community has right now, we wouldn't be having the kind of constrained housing options that we have at the moment. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Dynas. And I also wanted to acknowledge Commissioner Peter Schaub, who's here in the audience, and all of our planning commissioners who do such wonderful work for our community. So thank you so much, both of you, for presenting this evening. Okay, Deputy, sorry.
Mayor, through the chair, if we could have Joe Tovar then present to the council.
Yes.
Okay.
And have the floor. There is a memorandum in your agenda packet, and then Mr. Tovar has provided some alternative motions for the council, which he can walk you through.
Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager King. Members of the council, happy to be here. I've been on the island for a couple of weeks now. Been to one planning commission meeting. I've been trying to catch up with a lot of what has already gone before. Done a lot of reading. Don't presume to know more than is realistic to know this much time in. Most of my conversations that I've had with several of you, several of the planning commission members, of course, the city staff, have focused on where are we now? Not how do we get here necessarily, but where are we now? How much time do we have? What sense of immediacy or urgency is there in the near term? I've been retained to work with the city through the end of October. So November 1st, I'm out of the picture. I'll do as much as I can to be helpful and a resource to you and to the commission as I can in that period of time. Most of what I've focused on so far has been to look at the task in front of the commission, the amount of time they have. Memo I've written for them to what we'll be talking about on Thursday, and I think I touched on some of this in the memo I sent to you all. So we're looking at how to create more agenda time over the summer. Now, in my experience, summer is not the best time to ask for citizen volunteers to put in more time on a difficult project, but this is where we find ourselves. So we've been talking about how can we create a larger surface area of time for that commission to burrow through all the issues that are still in front of them, to take whatever direction you can offer to them now, and think about how much progress can they make by the beginning of November. Now, you heard Commissioner Dynas basically say end of the year. Okay, that's a time frame to be thinking about. you are behind schedule, not just on the comprehensive plan update, but also on the development regulations. The act requires both to have been updated. I think another thing I've shared with the commissioner so far is that the comprehensive plan is a guide for the regulations, but it is not the regulations. It is not the controls. The regulations, the controls are what limit what can and can't happen with individual development proposals. Now, I don't mean to be dismissive of the plan. The policies are very important. They provide direction. They explain intent. They're aspirational. They hopefully direct things to be happening subsequently, either through regulations or capital projects or programs or strategies or other implementing actions. But I was trying to convey to the commission, and I think many of them get this. One risk here is I can't presume how much they know. They're very smart people. You've got a great planning commission, by the way. I've learned that just by watching and talking to many of them. But I don't know to what extent things I may be saying to them or even saying to you, you would say, well, of course we know that, Joe. I mean, we've been doing this for quite a while. So I run the risk maybe over speaking what I think people need to know. But there are other folks listening to this conversation as an example who perhaps don't have as much background or understanding as council members or commissioners do. So that's a risk I think I'm willing to take, to be a little bit more expansive on things I think people need to bear in mind, things they need to know, how to move forward. So again, one thing I've tried to convey to the commission, and I will hopefully convey this to you, thing I'm hearing from people is some sense of urgency, of immediacy, to spend the next 3 months in as efficient and effective a way as we can to move forward. At the same time, I'm not saying speed is the only thing that matters. Thoughtful deliberation is important. Considering each other's opinions and ideas during their deliberation is important. Again, I'm previewing things that you're going to be hearing on Thursday when I talk to the commissioners. You need to be able to look at an issue, advocate for an issue, be open-minded about what you think an answer might be to an issue, and then reach some kind of a conclusion in order to move on to the next issue, because there are a whole range of issues stacked up in front of them that have got to be dealt with to get to the end of this process. So more efficient is tools and tips I'm trying to share with them about how to move things along. Again, not at the expense of good deliberation, not at the expense of the input they're getting from the council and from the public. So that will take some discipline. That will take some structure. And that's part of what I'm focusing on in the near term is the operation of the commission and that critical path forward. Frankly, I'm not well equipped at this point to tell you what I think of the advisability of any of these motions you have before you tonight. I was asked to kind of couch the motions for you to consider, but I'm not here to make a recommendation on which motion makes the most sense. I wouldn't presume to do that, not just because I don't have the background yet to say that kind of thing, but also I don't think that's my role. I'm not here to make decisions. I'm not here to make recommendations. If people turn to me and say, Joe, what do you think of this? If I'm directly asking a question, I'll try to give you as a non-invasive and directed answer as I can. But I see my role as supplemental. I see my role as amplifying. I see my role as guiding, maybe even modeling with some tips about how the commission might move forward. But I'm not here to give you the answers. So I think I've appropriately insulated myself from uncomfortable questions you might have for me. The way that I framed these motions, taking the spirit of what the two commissioners have presented and discussed with you this evening, try to structure them so you can say A or B. And if you move on to the second question, A or B. It's that simple. So I'll pause there and see if you have questions for me. I'll try to answer them.
Deputy Mayor.
I'd like to say just a few things before there's a motion on the table. First of all, we all need to remember we've got a big job in hand right now. It has to be a foundation for planning in the future. 10 years from now, actually 8 years from now, we're going to be starting planning a comprehensive plan process again. So we're planning 20 years out, and we're planning for capacity, but filling the capacity is going to be a very slow process. In 10 years, how many units of housing of any kind will be built? I'm not afraid of creating too much capacity that's all of a sudden going to be overwhelming the sewer plan. We do have to be concerned about planning for too many people in Winslow, because people want to come to the island as a whole, and we shouldn't provide only for housing in Winslow. But the housing will happen slower than we want it to. And we've been behind them. We're doing some catch up now, which is a good thing. But we need to create the capacity and the governing regulation so that we do get the housing we want rather than the housing that the market wants to impose on us. So all of these things, I'm not afraid of creating too much capacity because we have a check against that in 8 to 10 years in the future. We can look again at what capacity we need and of what kind and all of that. So let's just be broad in our vision and patient with the details. That's my approach to both of the presentations from the planning commissioners. And fortunately, Joe Tovar is going to help us a hell of a lot all the way through this.
Thank you.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Councilmember Schneider.
Thank you, Mayor. We are so grateful you're here. I will start with that. I guess I will first say that I agree in large part with what was just said about getting the housing that we need. And it will be slow. It will be slow in coming. But, you know, there still is this idea that there is capacity in the sewer plant, right? And but unlike maybe groundwater, we're going to know when we're approaching those boundaries, right? And the state is not going to allow us to not plan for that. So I think what I remember being told is that, you know, when we get to, I don't know what it is, like 15% of the full capacity, then we're required to basically figure out what we're going to do. So my question is, what does that look like from your perspective with a 20-year horizon, or maybe even a longer horizon from a point of view of planning for the potential need for sewer capacity relative to what we can expect from growth?
Thank you. Great question. It ties together two things that we need to keep in mind. One is time, and what kind of time horizons are we thinking about? And the second one is capacity, because you're right. You need, under the Growth Management Act, to have capacity to serve the level of growth you're going to be accommodating. So the 20-year horizon basically is most relevant in the GMA to when an urban growth area in a county is sized, it can't be no larger than is needed for the coming 20 years. Now, I think that has caused a lot of people to say, well, this is a 20-year plan, and the time horizon you're looking at is 20 years. Well, that's true, but there are other timelines in the statute that talk about your capacity, updating your capital facilities plan, updating your capital improvement program on much shorter time frames, 5 and 6 years. And you'll be monitoring the performance of, let's say, your sewer plant or your other utilities over time. So you'll have a finer idea of how much capacity you might have left to work with 2 years from now, 4 years from now, 5 years from now. The other thing to be said about timing is that, yes, Mr. Quitzel is correct. You have a 10-year cycle now. These plans are supposed to be reviewed on a 10-year cycle, but there's also a 5-year check-in point where specifically you're supposed to be looking at a couple of things, including housing. So the state is still figuring out how they're going to do that and what that's going to look like. They're spending some time trying to sort that out and be sharing that with cities and counties, and others that have an interest in knowing what are they looking for 5 years from now. There are some other things to be thinking about. One is you do have the opportunity to amend your plan theoretically every year. The limitation is to only amend it no more than once a year. Well, now there's some workarounds for that. There are some exceptions even to that, but the concept is you only amend your plan when you need to amend your plan. And that's not just when the state tells you you must reconsider your plan. It can also be you all saying, we need to revisit these policies and here's why, and then make the case. The other thing I guess I'd like to say about that is the regulations that implement the plan. Again, the key part of the conversation is what do the regulations say? What will they and won't they allow to have happen? Regulations, unlike comprehensive plans, can be amended every month. There's no limitation on how frequently you can amend your regulations. So as you move into implementation, whatever the policies turn out to be that you adopt, The regulations will serve you, the regulations that you adopt, you'll monitor performance. The staff will keep you aware of how things are going, what kind of progress you're making on different metrics you might be setting. But you have the authority then to revisit regulations if you have a need. If you feel like you want to adjust, whether it's a density or a unit count or FAR or standards or whatever, parking, there are lots of pieces to controls that affect what does and doesn't happen. And is it expensive or less expensive? And if so, how much and why? So there's a lot of flexibility as you think about the implementation of this plan you're about to adopt. That's soon, at some point soon, over time. And you can make adjustments to your regulations just as you can make amendments to your capital program as well over time. All these things are connected, which makes it frustrating and very interesting. I mean, these pieces are all connected. You can't just do them in silos the way that people used to do back in the day. So I guess I'm giving a mini speech here. Signing on the Growth Management Act is not just controversial, it's complicated. And it takes a lot of attention by decision makers, yourselves, as well as your policy advisors, the Planning Commission, and the staff that advises both of you. So that's a little bit more answer than I wanted to give, but basically be thinking about timing, how soon things are going to happen, and how soon you can make corrections if you think you need to.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Hagopoulos.
Yeah, thank you. Also welcome to you, Joe, and you're so clear in your communication, and that's going to be so helpful. And of course, you have a lot of deep experience. And I also want to appreciate Councilmember Blossom in particular, both of you for speaking, but that was so succinct what you said about your motion. It really was, I think, really helpful, really set up what we're looking at. And I guess I want to pick up on what Joe was just saying was exactly what I was about ready to talk about, though maybe from a different perspective. That being the flexibility the council has, the power the council has to affect our, including with comp plan amendments, even our comp plan, but certainly our development standards, our policies, programs, everything. This is an ongoing job we do. If the will is here to do it, it will be done. It can be done in the next year. All of the things we want to do, that cramming them right now into this comp plan cycle might not be a smart thing to do. It's not as though we have a bite at the apple that we're about to lose. There's a lot of comment coming from the community, et cetera, that suggests that if it doesn't all get into this comprehensive plan update, we're not going to do it. We've somehow lost some rare opportunity. And my concern continues to be that, and I think this is what we're hearing in the motion from the Planning Commission, is that they need to be able to do what we need to do for sure well. And for a lot of reasons, we got a DEIS that was a lot of ways we've had to work backwards from. A lot of time has been lost. The Planning Commission was denied. I think Ben was talking about the fact that, the fact that they started even before it was due on the work. We've lost time. So why would we now cram anything more onto this cycle than needs to be there to get this done well? And to create the development standards for what could be very courageous, I'm not sure that's my word, but big changes to what development looks like in Bainbridge in just 2 zones. I want the Planning Commission to spend the time to do that well. I don't see how there would be time to do an entire middle housing plan or anything else between now and the end of the year. I also absolutely support what was stated by Commissioner Blossom with regards to sewer plan. As I've said many times up here, I will not be voting for any sort of upzoning outside beyond the full build out of our current sewer plan, because we can come back and look at, are we growing it slowly, as as Deputy Mayor Quitzlin said, and so we need more tools, we need to do something, or are we kind of moving at a clip and now we need to talk about sewer? I don't think there's any reason to put the cart before the horse. We have time to do this well. We should be planning for zoning within our current capacity at full build out max.
Thanks, Councilmember Dietz, and then Councilmember Fancher Johnson.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. And yeah, Joe, great to see you. Thank you so much. It was good talking to you last week. And thank you, Commissioners Dinas and Blossom. I really appreciate your work, your coming here. I think the Planning Commission was put in a difficult spot. When they started this, they were already behind. I think there's a saying somewhere about that, but so our apologies. I would say my apologies on behalf of the council for putting you in a spot, starting off beginning of the year and already you're behind. And so let's try and avoid that in the future. this comprehensive plan is a plan. It's and if anything, it's a statement of our intent or what do we wish to see in the community and relating to all the various levels of housing, affordable housing, but also middle housing and the types of development standards we do. So I was particularly taken and Joe, Mr. Tovar, your one of your bullet points is planning commissioners have an interest in having a 2026 work plan to adopt middle housing and form-based code regulations. I quite like that. Now, for those who don't know, form-based code is a type of land development regulation that prioritizes the physical form of buildings in the public realm over traditional zoning focused land use. So form-based code basically makes, if it's well done, buildings more desirable. I really quite like that. I would listen to the planning commission that there's interest in do that. I would like them to work on that. In fact, I have a motion to make and we'll see where it goes. I move that if the interim capacity analysis demonstrates that the recommended changes to the Ferry and High School Road districts meet the capacity required in HB 1220, then the Planning Commission should still consider potential changes in the other zoning districts to include form-based code regulations and middle housing.
Second. That was a tie. Motion made by Councilmember Dietz. Let's give it to Councilmember Schneider.
Well, just a quick clarification. Did you say 2026? What?
Well, I was referring to, it wasn't in the motion, but I'm sorry, can I respond? Okay. In Mr. Tovar's memorandum, he expressed that speaking for the planning commission members, there was planning commission members who were interested. And again, I'm just referring to the document that we all got. Planning commissioners suggest there is interest in proposing a 2026 work program priority to adopt middle housing and form-based code regulations. So I'm just referring to that memorandum that Mr. Tovar put in. I'd like to see that happen. Now, that's not between now and the end of the year, that's next year. So just to be clarified.
Well, if I may, I appreciate the motion, but I would like to hear more discussion. I mean, talk about a little bit cart before the horse. There's some things like form-based is an idea I never learned about. So I think it'd be nice to at least talk this out a little bit before. I'm not saying I'm opposed to the motion. I believe that we should it could come after the end of the discussion, but to move it now, I think would be a little bit premature.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table and let's continue with discussion.
Was there a second?
Yes. Yep, there was a second. Motion made and seconded. Councilmember Fantra Johnson.
Thank you, Joe. I'm getting caught up in my own clothes here. I wanted to thank you all for coming and telling us all of this wonderful news. I think it's good news when we have people who kind of agree the way I agree. So I think it's good news. And what I hear from the community and from what it sounds like I hear from some of you is that it makes no sense to just have two zones where we're talking about housing. Why leave all that on the table? Why not talk about housing? Period. That's what I hear. And that's the way I feel about it. I mean, let's look at it all. And it's not, I don't know how much time that's going to add to people, but it doesn't feel to me like cramming anything. It feels to me like that we're going to take a look at it and we're going to have it there just in case we can do it, right? It's not, let's never talk about it again. These two zones and these two zones only. I don't like that because we don't know how we're going to grow. We don't know how the capacity for the sewer is going to be. We just don't know. But I like the idea of our consultant who says we can look at it whenever we want to. We're not limited. We don't have to look at it when somebody says look at it. If we feel like we're getting to a critical point, we can look at it. That's what, planning is to step back and take a look at where you are. And yes, I do support the motion. Either this motion or the one that says don't leave anything on the table. So that's where I'm standing for it.
Thanks, Councilmember Fancher Johnson. Councilmember Murwaki.
Thank you, Mayor Matthews. I'm going to have a little bit expended time because a lot of thoughts as well as some questions. One thing I want to get out is there's a sense that if you plan it, the day after you plan it, we're going to have 10,000 people living here. It just doesn't happen. I mean, if we did nothing today, if I looked at the draft EIS correctly, if all of the available units that are available now under current zoning were immediately built and brought in population, we'd increase our population about 3,000 or something like that. Just because the plan's there, it's in there. It has 2,000 units, so it's assumed that one unit is one person. And anyway, but if they were all there, the point I'm making is under the current zoning we have, and you look at our map, there's a lot of undeveloped and unused property that at their current zoning are not being used or not developed. For a lot of reasons, they don't want to build there and the rest. So, but that's something to keep in mind. And when we think about planning, when I think about planning, let's say I buy I have a lot over at Battle Point, one of the pea patches. They have those there. You can garden in the summer and whatnot. And my plan for my pea patch is to have, well, I like tomatoes and potatoes and carrots. That's my plan for it. I'm expecting someone else to plant it for me. I mean, I'm not going to do it. I just want it there. But that's what a plan is. It's an expectation. It's a vision. But I think a little bit of our temperature here is you plan this, we're going to approve it, and instantly this island's going to change overnight. It just doesn't happen. I think we got to just calmly look back and say, this will be a vision. We can debate about that. But some of the discussion I'm hearing is this a little fear-based of all of that stuff's going to happen overnight, and it just isn't. So I would hope that we could at least pull that back a little bit as a community and try to be a little more, we can do better on that topic, I think. So I have a couple of questions for Mr. Tovar. One is your work in the Growth Management Act, also that it's a multi question or multi question. So what other than land use planning, what other plans are necessary to have a full comprehensive plan, transportation and the rest? And then after you answer that, when are those supposed to be done? Are they supposed to be done together? And when is that expectation? And then 3, do you believe we have the capacity to do that?
Well, the Growth Management Act requires that your comprehensive plan have all those pieces, a land use piece, transportation piece, a utilities piece, capital facilities piece. So there are things that are mandated that you have to be in your plan, and they are in your current plan. You've also chosen to add other elements, which is your choice. And that's something that some cities have chosen to do. Others have not. The sub-area plan for Winslow is also a choice you've made. You did not have to create a sub-area, but it made a lot of sense. And many cities have sub-areas, either their downtown area or a station area or a certain district, an industrial district that is different than the other parts of the jurisdiction that they want to focus on a specific closed-sided figure to deal with land use and all these other issues differently than the rest of the jurisdiction. So what you've chosen to do here is to, when you update your comprehensive plan as mandated by last December, you've chosen to say, but a piece of it, the sub-area at Winslow, we're going to be dealing with it distinctly and a bit differently than the rest of the island, which again is your choice. You can do that. That's the last plan we adopted here 7 years ago. So the concept of the conservation area, I think, was an embodiment of your desire to have most of the growth, urban-like growth, focused here, while preserving and recognizing the constraints, the water constraints, utility constraints, the other parts of the island that really are not well suited to the kind of intensity and unit count that you might be able to accommodate in Winslow. So I guess part of the answer is you have pieces, you have all the pieces you need in your comprehensive plan. I frankly have not looked at the other elements of the comprehensive plan. I know there are drafts that have already been prepared. We're going to need to come back and look at those to make sure that there's anything in that citywide policy statement that we need to somehow reflect or adjust to or implement through the Savaria plan for Winslow, we need to be paying attention to that too. Again, frankly, I haven't looked at much of the rest of your plan other than the housing element, which looks familiar to me since I sat in a room with that man right there 7 years ago in Maridel Gale and worked our way through those policies, policy by policy. So I'm pretty familiar with what's in the housing element already. I haven't frankly looked at the other pieces of the draft of your citywide comprehensive plan. To come to your second question, which is a more difficult question, which is, do you have capacity to do all of that? I think you have the ability to do all of the Savaria piece within the 9 meetings the commission has in front of them, provided that they are not given too many more things to do in the next 3 months that are not part of this comprehensive plan and Winslow Savaria plan effort. I know some of that's happening already, and some of their urgent needs, you were talking, I think, earlier, either tonight or at a previous meeting, there's some things you've got to put on their agenda. They've got to deal with in that 3-month window. It just can't be helped. But other than that, I think if we can really bear down on the time, the agenda time we do have for them in the coming 3 months, I think they can make significant progress. I think I'm not going to put odds on it, but I think it's possible to wrap up what they want to say to you about the Winslow Savaria and the implementing regulations they think have to go along with that part of what they recommend. The rest of the comprehensive plan, the other elements probably will take a bit more time to make sure they all fit together, they all mesh, that they're internally consistent. But I think I heard earlier, somebody said maybe by the end of the year, could you have the whole thing wrapped up? Again, I'm not a betting man, but I think it's a possibility. Again, if you put the resources into it, and if the Planning Commission comes at this with the energy and the discipline that it will take. Again, I'm not saying they're not disciplined people. I'm not saying they're not energetic people, but it's going to be a major effort. And I want to be really plain about my assessment of that.
Right. So just to amplify and clarify what you just said, we are focusing a lot on land use and the sub-area and the rest. But as you just mentioned, and I've been saying for quite a while now, we do have these other elements that you just mentioned, transportation, utilities, and others, which do not necessarily have to go through the Planning Commission. Those are just visionary documents that we have that we can do as a council, I believe. If I'm incorrect on that, then please correct me. But if that's the case in either way, as you just mentioned, can we put forward a comprehensive plan without addressing these other required elements?
Again, I may be getting tripped up on terminology here, and I'm looking over at the city attorney here. I think if you're talking the transportation element as defined in the GMA, that's got to be in your comprehensive plan. If there's another transportation study, a functional plan, let's say dealing with utilities or transportation or surface water, that is separate from the comprehensive plan, is more of an adjunct to the city's capital planning. I don't think that needs to be in your comprehensive plan. The capital facilities element of your comprehensive plan, I think, would have to make reference to the other ways the city is spending dollars and maintaining systems, transportation systems, utility systems. So there needs to be some mention or some connection in your comprehensive plan to those things. But if you have functional plans, and by functional plans, I mean much more specific, detailed. Other cities have fire departments within the jurisdiction, and they have very detailed fire master plans, as an example, or a parks master plan that isn't necessarily living in the comprehensive plan, but it's a way the city sets policy and makes mostly capital and operating budget decisions. So there needs to be some discussion of that, I think, in your capital facilities element. So it relates to the land use decision you're making, because key organizing concept of the GMA comprehensive plan is a lot of these other things, the pipes, the roads, the parks, the public facilities, they are there to support the land use decisions that you're making. So that's the relationship between those, what I would call functional plans or policies that go to where do you build the roads, where do you build utilities, what's the budget for those things. They've got to be supporting whatever your land use decisions are. And again, your land use decisions, I think this is your point, they need to be supported by, do you have capacity?
Well,
So-
we have
I guess maybe I'm asking the question another way. So what are the other elements that we
so
do have to
yeah.
require?
we're gonna have to move on. I'm sorry, council member. It's a little long. Okay, so next.
Just one other point. You pointed out in your study, I'm concerned, we're hearing we can do this, but we can address it later. And yet in one of your memos, you say that the GMA at Revised Code of Washington 36.708- or .040 requires that development regulations must not only be consistent with the plan but implement it. This means that the amended development code must demonstrate that the amount of development capacity is in the plan, can be achieved thoroughly, permits issued under the code, or at the very least, not toward that achieving that capacity. And the understanding was confirmed by conversation with people at the Washington State Department of Commerce. So I'm just having a clarification question for me. Because I'm kind of confused, and I'm sure other people trying to follow along. Can we indeed do this without having that underlying code and that kind of discussion on zoning?
No, you need to have regulations adopted, if not the same night, soon after the ordinance that adopts your comprehensive plan update. Now, that's not to say how much regulation and how much detail to go into. Again, what I was trying to convey, my message there was enough to be able to credibly say, yes, someone can come into your front counter and apply for a permit, rely upon the regulations that are in place that will support the capacity that your plan says you have. Now, that doesn't mean you have to have a form-based code. Doesn't mean you have to have development regulations for middle housing. Those are things you could do later for your own reasons, not because the state's making you adopt a form-based code.
Thank that clarification. I think that was talking about what Councilmember Titopoulos was trying to get to.
Thank you, council members. And we were able to spend, a few of us spent some time with Mr. Tovar answering questions. So I would recommend Councilmember Moriwaki, you get some time with him and go over some of these questions. Okay, any more questions before we deliberate? And let's try to be quick. Okay, Councilmember Schneider.
Thank you, Mayor. So I have a question going back to the motion, which I seconded because I had a little bit of, I want to make sure that I understood the entire wording. So eventually, not the second, I want to hear it again. I'm just a little concerned about the 2026 reference. It's not in the motion. Okay. So then I'm comfortable with it. And the reason I'm comfortable with that is I want to give the Planning Commission, I will support this. I want to give the Planning Commission the ability to go forward with a lot of the innovative ideas that I've seen in some of the commissioners' meetings. I want that to be, broad ranged in the Winslow sub area. I don't want it to be, restricted to just a couple districts. I would love, for instance, to see the ability for innovative housing and retail, for instance, to go into the core. And I think that there's ways to tuck in some density in the core that would just be, an amazing experience for people who get to live downtown and walk around the corner to a grocery store or whatever. So anyway, I want to just say that, walkability is key. And yes, I want to see middle income housing further out in the Winslow sub-area as well. I want to see that as an option. And then I think as Councilmember Dietz was referring to, the regulations for these other policies that I hope can be developed in time to go out with the comprehensive plan. The regulations for, let's say, middle housing could come later. But if they're in the comprehensive plan, then they're allowed, right? Or we don't have to revisit the comprehensive plan. Cracking it open is a big deal, even if we're allowed to do it once a year. And then finally, just to answer a question about the transportation plan, I did get an answer. The transportation plan specifically is required for our, in order to get sort of signed off on it. And in this particular case, the transportation plan is what Puget Sound Regional Council looks at. And so they are evaluating that. They don't evaluate the housing part. That's done by Commerce. But I think that we're in pretty good shape with for transportation. Just sitting on the Transportation Policy Board, I think that we are hitting the priorities and we have the foundation that PSRC would be looking for. The only thing I have a slight hesitation about is whether or not they're going to be requiring a safety plan. And I think we have a lot of elements, but I don't know that we have anything pulled together in a plan. So hopefully that won't be required in this go round. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councilmember. So I'm going to support the motion, and I'm very grateful for both of you presenting and all the work that the Planning Commission does. The reason I'm supporting this motion is we keep talking about units, and that sometimes throws us off into like an advanced math equation when we're really talking about people and families. And so I just like to keep that in mind. And then just thinking about right now, timing and who's on the Planning Commission and who might not be in the next few months. I really value this current commission and the work they're doing, the work they started, and I would really, really like to see this group get to do as much of the work that we've been talking about and dreaming about, like form-based code or, TDR, you name it, all of the tools. This group just is really special to me and have special skills, and I really would like Vice Chair Blossom to still be a part of this. And so for that reason, I support the motion. So Councilmember Hitopoulos, and then we're going to call the vote.
Just a couple of things. I was kind of confused by the motion because Councilmember Dietz was referencing the desire to work in 2026 on the middle housing code. So I'm not sure how that got wrapped up into the, I understand the motion doesn't include that. It sounds like we were presented the information they would like to work on that in 2026, which exactly goes along with the idea that a lot of work can be done between things and it doesn't have to be done now. But as I understand it, that's now been wrapped up into what we're directing the Planning Commission to do this year. I want to just touch on a couple things. It wasn't long ago that there were more voices than mine on this dais saying that we wanted to understand what we were required to do in this cycle. And the reason that matters is because the fact is the majority of this community does not want a huge population increase. They never have. We've always been careful to try to keep our population growth down because of our limited resources, not because of not wanting diversity at all, but because we have a limited carrying capacity. And we've always sought to be as cautious as we can be about not becoming a Mercer Island or what have you. And again, when we first got the really bloated DEIS, there was still conversation on this dais about what do we need to do during this cycle? And what are we trying to, going back again to our timeline, what are we trying now to force into the remaining 6 months of this year? And that has been the 1220 numbers, and to the extent that they exceed our population capacity. I encourage council members to walk about this island, and I good luck finding many people who do not want us to resist having a huge population increase. So what I would love to hear from the dais, which we're not hearing at all, and if I were on Planning Commission, I would want to know, regardless of my own thoughts on what these numbers are going to look like, what's the cap? Is there a cap? I think everybody up here has dissociated themselves from the 11,000 new people. Okay, so how many are we talking about? Because it is people who use water and roads and sewer capacity, and that is why the GMA requires us, as Joe was just talking about, and we all know, to have the ability to support the population. So yeah, please don't cut me off, Mayor. I'm almost done, but we're really cutting people off right now. And this is really the most important stuff that we do right now. So I think I had one more comment, and that was just, I feel like I've had to say this many, many times, but please don't use the argument that we're not going to grow. We've never grown. We're not going to grow. If we zone it, they won't build it. We can't say out of one side of our mouths, if we keep doing when we're talking about sewer capacity, that our housing code is broken. We need to fix it so we can get the units we want. But then we're going to turn around and say we can outzone our sewer capacity because we won't get the units because we never do. That is really not responsible planning.
Thanks, Councilmember. Okay, we have a motion on the table.
Would you like me to repeat it?
Sure.
Because I heard that request, so I'm happy to repeat the motion just to be clear. Okay. I move that if the interim capacity analysis, try again. I move that if the interim capacity analysis demonstrates that the recommended changes to the ferry and high school road districts meet the capacity required in HB 1220, then the planning commission should still consider potential changes in the other zoning districts to include form-based code regulations and middle housing.
Okay, so motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay, so that was six of us to 1. That motion passes.
And Mayor, if I could, I'm sorry, just interject just briefly, because of all the work we're asking the planning commission to do, and our apologies. A little side note, we get fed before meetings and it really helps our morale. And maybe, I'm not sure if I'm out of place, but is there a way we can find in our budget to feed planning commissioners while they're going through all this work? So I want to throw that, let's treat them like we treat ourselves. And because they're going to be under a lot of pressure. So I just want to say that.
Thanks, Councilmember. Okay, we are on next to providing, no. Okay, discuss scope of responsibilities of the steering committee overseeing public engagement for the sub-area plan and comprehensive plan. Thank you, commissioners. And thank you, Joe Tovar.
Yes, Mayor. The next item before you is an item that came from the city council's proposition proposed by the council to the council. There's no necessary staff analysis with that because it didn't necessarily require staff work. But the consideration is the council had formed a steering committee to oversee the public engagement elements of the comprehensive plan and the Winslow sub-area plan. That steering committee has been tasked to look at public engagement. It has been suggested by the steering committee that their charge should be expanded to deal more with policy-related issues of substance related to the comprehensive plan and the Winslow sub-area plan. That proposition is put to the council for discussion and potential action.
And City Manager.
Yeah.
Deputy Mayor.
Sometimes I'm the last person, but tonight I've been the first person time and again.
Like Johnny on the spot.
I take responsibility and blame for getting this measure on the agenda. Subsequent to making that move to meet a deadline, I talked with one of my fellow members on the steering committee, and what I heard was, no, that's not, you won't get what you're looking for. You'll just make things worse. I feel others may have opinions, something to say about this right now, but I just assume move on. I do think that the steering committee, we've had some very robust and useful discussions, and I'd like to see more of them. I think we have been a little too handicapped without agendas that address the current conditions of our planning. And maybe we can have just more wide-ranging and useful discussions, but without any sort of formal redefinition of our role, because we have not been doing mischief. We've not been getting out of line with the larger picture. So I'll leave it there.
Okay, Councilmember Red Topless.
Yeah, well, I may be the colleague that the deputy mayor is referring to, but okay, well, that's good to know. Because I did give feedback to the original wording, I think that he was bringing forward, that it was not quite what I would have agreed with, but I do want to talk about this briefly. I think there's something we should do. I don't think that we were asking to play a role in substantive policy making. That's what threw me. That's not what I've asked for. I've hoped that we would be able to have some good conversations, open this up to maybe I think we've even talked about this at least somewhat here when we talked about what's going on with this, this steering committee. is it might be a good place for us to be sort of bridging the gap, breaking through the wall that's between the two bodies to kind of just explore, is there anything that we can do for you, you could do for us? It's in a public forum, which is nice, so it educates, it also is very transparent. We had a kind of a wide-ranging conversation last time. I think it felt good from our perspective. I think it felt good for the commissioners to just be able to say, hey, you know, here's what's going on, here's what's challenging, and just, we're not deciding anything, we're not writing policy. So that's kind of mushy, but I think that minimally to just have it understood that it's a place where there can be, if only part of or most of the agenda is a sort of a free-ranging conversation, a check-in between the bodies as to, you know, hey, what happened to our motions that we sent you that we haven't seen on the council, in the council packet? So I'd like that permission from the city council, but not asking to be tackling, you know, as a subcommittee policy decisions.
Councilmember Fantra Johnson.
Yeah, I think, you know, I had a big problem with the steering committee from the very beginning, right? Because I think that, and we just got through talking about not putting any more on the planning commissioners. I don't believe that there's any place for the steering committee to have more of a role than what they do for public engagement. I think that's where we decided they should be. That's what we voted on. And to come in at this time and try to change it, I thought you were just going to pull it back is what I actually thought. And so I won't be pushing this any forward or voting for it or whatever.
There's really no need to keep discussing it if it's, yeah. Are you passionate about saying something, Councilmember Schneider?
I'm passionate about saying that I concur with Councilmember Hitopoulos.
Okay. Councilmember Morawaki.
And I'll join a Hitopoulos fan club.
Okay. Okay, so we can just move on. Great. All right, next. Okay, Councilmember Hitopoulos.
I don't think we can. I don't know that it needs a motion. We can ask the city manager, but I'm
discussion
talking
only.
about continuing to have what we had the last meeting, which was very helpful, which was just sort of like the ability to dialogue. That's not about public participation necessarily. It's more like having transparency between the bodies to communicate. So there's no power there. There's no decisions, there's no motions, there's no policy drafting. I don't know that I want to stay on the committee, quite frankly, if we don't have that, because we really haven't been able to accomplish a whole lot. I think we all show up in the middle of the workday. We haven't had any real substantive public participation or anything stuff to work on for quite a while. And I think this is a valuable use of our time.
Do you think it's sunsetted? Or do you think?
No, I think that there'll be other public participation things to discuss. But I don't think we're asking for more power or a different or of a role. We probably could just go ahead and make our agendas do this, but I think the idea is just to be transparent and just let the council know that we were asking for a nod of assent to be able to have those conversations.
Thanks. I agree with Councilmember Fantra Johnson.
I guess it would be, good for me to know, how does the planning commission feel about this?
That would be good too.
Well, he's not the only guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he is the only guy here.
I think we get the gist of this conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. We get the gist of the conversation. So I think we all get the gist that you would like to interface more with the planning commission, with the steering committee.
Yeah.
Right?
The steering committee's role
Yeah.
that we voted on.
Yeah.
It was not that.
Okay, no.
Well,
So yeah, so
It would take a vote to change that.
Well,
That's what we're gonna have
yeah,
to do.
and I'm not supportive
And
of
it's
that.
not about just, oh, we can do that and we can do this.
Okay. Would you like to make a motion?
I will make a motion, yes. And
Okay.
by the way, we have the two active members of the planning commission right there and right here. And
Okay,
I
we don't
give
need
you-
that. Just make a.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So my motion is that that the steering committee be authorized to have an ongoing agenda item that is simply an open conversation between the representatives from the two bodies sitting on that body to discuss the status of the comprehensive plan and explore opportunities for cooperation between the bodies.
Second. And if I may, the central the role given to the steering committee was to oversee public information, public interplay with the public. And there's a lot more of that that's needed going forward before we finish. We will have that responsibility to discuss month by month. And there are some things to yeah. So let's vote.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? No. Okay. Okay. We have 5 yays and 2 nays. Okay, next we are on to, do you have something, Councilmember Morwaki or Councilmember? Okay. Next is provide direction to staff to align code for pre-approved accessory dwelling unit plans.
Yes, Mayor, we have a very brief presentation. This is an item placed on the agenda through the council again. The basic issue is that the Kitsap Regional Coordinating Council has established a program of pre-approved accessory dwelling units. Basically, pre-approved means that the construction plans have been reviewed by a building official, structural engineer, and that those plans could be available. We'll explain very briefly how we have code language that prohibits or limits the use of those type of pre-approved existing off-the-shelf plans.
Thank you, City Manager. Good evening, City Council. Patty Charnas, Planning and Community Development. Before you tonight is a request for a motion to have staff work through the Planning Commission on amending the zoning code to help support the use of these pre-approved ADU plans. Very briefly, you all know that as a member jurisdiction to the Kitsap Regional Coordinating Council, our then planning manager was really our representative to the development and implementation of these pre-approved plans, which include 480 square feet, 600 square feet, and 800 square feet in 1 and 2 story pre-approved plan sets. And just recently, last week, they issued 1,000 square foot plan sets. So what we have in our zoning code is a section devoted to accessory dwelling units. A couple of those standards are rather limiting on the ability to use these pre-approved plans, including that there's a requirement shall be designed to maintain the appearance of the primary dwelling unit. This isn't always available with these pre-approved plans because we have choices of siding and roofing materials that might not always be aligned with the primary dwelling unit. And we have a maximum of 900 square feet, whereas state law now allows a maximum of 1,000 square feet. Another limiting factor is not all times can we create ADUs, which otherwise this city allows pretty straightforward to always share a driveway. So we would be asking that for that to be coming from a shall to a should. So given the discussion of most of the evening tonight, this is asking the Planning Commission to do other work. And before you tonight is the motion in your packet. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Planning Director. Councilmember Fuentes Johnson. Oh, who was first?
That was first.
Who's on first? Councilmember Morwaki.
Thank you, Mayor Matthews, and it's exciting. I'll get the motion on the floor and we'll talk about it. I move to direct the city manager to have the staff prepare an ordinance that updates code to provide for pre-approved plans for accessory dwelling units to be able to be more easily used on Bainbridge Island.
Second.
Then speaking to the motion, I would hope everyone here goes, I think it's pretty exciting. The plans are very idyllic and I think they fit with the architectural character of our island. I would just hope that as we move this forward, perhaps realtors and development community and others also be just brought up that we're considering this, so they would at least have an idea of this might be coming forward as possibilities for their future planning and developments.
Thanks. Okay, so we have Councilmember Dietz.
Yeah, thank you. Well, obviously, I support this motion. I was on the, I was chair of the Kitsap Regional Coordinating Council last year, and we approved it then last year. So now it's July of 25, and now we're looking at it. But I want to move this forward. It's a great way. We've got to find ways to lower the cost of housing any way we can. Now, this isn't the be all to end all, but it is a help. It is another tool. I have sort of a general question, maybe to Director Charnas, is to, considering the workload on the Planning Commission, how much work would be involved in doing this? It seems like you actually circled things that changed, so hopefully it would be relatively straightforward. I hope. Okay. I'm hearing seeing a nod.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't know how you'd measure what more work means, to be honest with you. It would be more work. It's not going to be as complicated as amending other pieces.
Yeah.
But we won't want to mislead you that none of this is that easy. But it's not going to be rocket science on the other hand either. So I don't know how you measure more work.
No, fair. I know that's a qualitative question, but I was just hoping, when it's identified what needs to be changed, discussion, do we agree? Planning Commission, do you agree? Yes, no, and then come through. So anyway, I just think this is really important for it. We have to use every toolbox available to us, and so this is one to do, and so I heartily support it.
Thank you. I just have one question. Would this be something that could be administratively reviewed? Like the Planning Commission has so much work. This was something that came from the KRCC. It's been in the paper, all kinds of things, all the cities. Everyone's already signed up. And so if this is just a small code change that we have to make to.
The issue is that the code specifies these things, and so you need to change the code in order to allow them.
Yeah. So it has to go. Yeah, I was just trying to save them some work.
Yeah.
Okay, Deputy Mayor.
I think one change from shall to should has been identified. That's pretty simple. There's a phrase, I think it's the only other troublesome phrase is where it says shall be designed to maintain the appearance of the primary dwelling. Well, just change it to shall be designed to be compatible with the primary dwelling as a single family dwelling, etc. And if we wanted to raise from 900 to 1,000 square feet, that could be considered if it's not too complicated, too difficult.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Okay, we have a motion, or Councilmember Hydopoulos.
Yeah, well, I very much support this. I support moving it to Planning Commission. I think we can, because this is the kind of low hanging fruit of the easy changes or whatever we're supposed to be doing for affordable housing, or to make housing more affordable at least. I think what we just saw right here was one of the reasons why it's going to be important for them to wrestle at least a little bit with it, because apparently there's difference of opinion as to whether, I'm guessing whether we're saying it's not compatible, it is compatible or whatever. So anyway, glad there's going to be public process on it.
Okay, so all those in favor? Aye. Aye. That passes unanimously. Thank you, Planning Director. Okay, next on our agenda is review Chapter 1512 of the Bainbridge Island Municipal Code regarding placement of items in the right-of-way.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This item is on the council agenda. It's an opportunity for the council to review the city's policies with regard to placement of items in the right-of-way, including roundabouts. It's an opportunity for the council to provide direction if they wish to make any amendments to the way the current code is written. Chapter 15.12 governs the use of the public right-of-way. 1512.060 says that it's unlawful for anyone to make private use of any public right-of-way without first obtaining a right-of-way use permit from the city, or use any right-of-way without complying with all the provisions of the right-of-way permit. Then the code section goes on to establish different types of permit for different types of uses. But again, the use of the right of way or placement of items in the right of way all require a permit. Also, in addition to 1512-060, the city's recently adopted temporary sign ordinance prohibits the use or the placement of signs in any of the landscaped areas, including roundabouts and along Madison Avenue. Recently, we have seen volunteer efforts to place items within the roundabout. They not in conformance with the code. Again, the council's offered the opportunity if it wishes to amend the code. We've included for the council a public-facing non-confidential memo from the city attorney, which reviews the responsibilities concerning free speech. And that is that the city cannot make restrictions on the category on free speech, but can make restrictions on time, place, and manner. But as the memorandum states, regulations cannot discriminate based on the content or message conveyed by the speech or activity. It cannot favor one message or expression over another, without regard to whether it's impish, cute, or not. Finally, the last item for the council really falls into a housekeeping category. In the roundabout, we currently have located signs which state that there are not, and there's an attachment in the council agenda that has a picture of the sign that says signs and objects will be removed. There previously was a smaller sign, which also is a picture with attached to your agenda. The council's asked if do you want any sign at all? It could be no signs. Would you like the smaller version of the sign, or is the sign that's there satisfactory? So those three options I would appreciate direction from the council on what your preference is.
Thanks, City Manager. So I think we all know we're talking about flamingos, first of all. So I loved the flamingos. They were joyful. They were pink. I think there's an element right now of trauma bonding, and it was something that gave everyone a little bit of joy. And I think at the time, city manager and at the time he was saying that it was coming from the police chief that oftentimes, you can't let one thing there because then other sorts of things will show up. And I'm saying, no, not Bainbridge. No, that won't happen here. It'll be the lovely flamingos and we will find joy and smile when we go around the roundabout. And that was until maybe 3 Sundays ago. I'm headed to church at 9:30. And I swear this happened. It's like it happened magically because they disappeared. But I came around the corner and all of them had black writing on them that said quite offensive things. And so at that moment, unfortunately, the flamingos were over. They can't be there. I'm glad it was me who saw it. Somebody else must have seen it because they removed them and we're going to clean the writing off, but that doesn't work. But someone would have come and done it again. And so God forbid some, small child was coming around and saw what it was. It's not worth it. So I've seen a great flamingo sanctuary on Sands. And I hope they pop up on private property and bring us all joy. That being said, I would love to see us also remove our signs from the roundabout. The old marketer in me, red copy is like, you don't do it. It gives me a twitch every time I go around. The option of even the black copy on the small sign, I get it, but how about we just take our signs out and it goes back to a really pretty area with plants. Councilmember Dietz.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you for that information. Yeah, I thought the flamingos were great. I mean, you can't help it. You would drive by and you'd see them, you just sort of smile, laugh, and during the 4th of July parade, there was at least one contingent of a very organized and wonderful contingent of flamingo folks, and I happened to be in my part of the parade. I was right next to them, and they had wonderful conversations. But as per the city attorney's message, and as I think we all understand, is that and this is what happened as the mayor described, if we allow flamingos, let's just say, if we say, gee, they're great, we all laugh, we will have to allow everything else. We will have to allow everything else. So if we allowed flamingos, what the mayor described, we wouldn't be able to do anything about. So I think we just have to, I'm sorry, flamingos, they were great, but we did see the other side happen. And so I support the mayor's views, and I think that doesn't require a motion because that's just basically the existing ordinance. As far as the signs, I don't mind there being no signs. I welcome other comments.
Councilmember Hickopolis.
Yeah, well, I want to add my voice to the fact that I love the flamingos too. And I also agree that we don't want to be, we're not going to get in the business of regulating art or speech. Art is speech. I think it is great that we already have, whoever was it, I think maybe the mayor talking about, you know, the refuge for them on private property. We've had that dinosaur, is it still there? I don't drive down to high school anymore much, but you know, the dinosaur over the fence for years and years, that kind of fun little kitschy thing coming off of somebody's private property. So we do have the ability for people to be expressive on private property. So yes, I agree. Let's not change our ordinance. And while we did have a sign in the roundabout for years, I think as long as I can remember, amongst the foliage that said no signs. Now, the way it came out, reactionary to the flamingos, and it's just not much in the roundabout. I just don't think it's a good thing to have it there now. And all it's saying is it's stating our law, our code, right, about right-of-ways, which applies everywhere. So I really would prefer not to have a sign in the roundabout.
Councilmember Morawaki, and then Councilmember Fantra Johnson.
I think she was ahead of me.
No.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. You know, we went to the Association of Washington Cities conference, most of us just recently, and you get asked, hey, what are the issues that are keeping your constituents up at night? You know, what are they talking about social media? And I said, roundabouts, people not picking up after their dogs, flamingos and roundabouts. And I got a huge laugh. And I said, I'm not kidding. That's a thing. And when this happened, and, you know, perhaps it could have been a different way to remove them and take them back. And, you know, we can talk about that and some other, regroup. But it was the appropriate thing to do. Because part of this job is, and again, when I first saw them, I just laughed out loud and I drove around a roundabout just so I could see it all. I've never done a full circle of the roundabouts. That was the first time I've ever done that. And it works. But I get that because it is a freedom of expression and a First Amendment thing. And I'm glad that the mayor saw a real example of what I've been saying for weeks, in that I said, what if a swastika comes down our right-of-ways and says some awful things to our Jewish community in the synagogues or something like that? And if we didn't do anything, if we didn't do this on the flamingos, they could say, well, this is my art form. This is my political speech. You're violating my First Amendment rights for speech. And I was a former member of the board of the American Civil Liberties of Washington, and I'd be in favor of them because the First Amendment is sacrosanct. And so by doing this, we're just being consistent. And these are our public right-of-ways. They should be clear and free. And so this isn't anti-flamingo or anything else. It's really being pro-consistent on how we can make sure that our community is protected on situations like that. I mean, that's the part that we have as council members to think a little bit ahead of what are the repercussions of actions that may happen. And I'm glad that we're staying on this policy. And that's something I think we should continue. Nothing against free speech. It's all about being consistent with our policies.
Thanks, Councilmember Fantra Johnson.
Yeah, I'll be glad when the bushes grow up and we go back to all of the pretty flowers that we used to have, you know. And, you know, I agree that the flamingos were a happy sight, and it just made me think about the pandemic, and we did everything we could to try to, you know, make sure we were all okay. And I don't know why that reminded me of that, but it did. And so I agree that, you know, we don't need to have a huge sign. I'm not sure if we need to have any sign or if our code says we have to have a sign. I could go either way. So yeah, I support. what the mayor's direction was.
Councilmember Schneider.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to express a concern I have that when I was at the Rotary auction, there was a table full of flamingos and there was a sign above them that said, you can only buy these flamingos if you put them in the roundabout. So now what are all those people going to do who bought flamingos and they can't put them in the roundabout? Anyway, sorry. I'm fine with no sign.
Thank you, Councilmember. And it's fun to flamingo people. That's what we can do. Just to bring them as like an anonymous gift to bring joy to someone, like Rick rolling.
I just think it shows our openness for diversity and all of that. We are bringing in a whole species that never existed here before.
Love it. We're very flamboyant. Okay, well, I think do you have what you need from that?
So what I've heard from the council is that we will we will have no advisory signs within that roundabout.
Great. Okay, now we are on to consider formation of a council ad hoc subcommittee to review and draft landscape blower ordinance.
Yes, Mayor and Council, May 27th and June 10th, staff brought before you a staff-generated ordinance that would restrict the use of gas and diesel-powered leaf blowers. During the deliberation on that ordinance, the council offered several suggestions, including size and type prohibitions, time of year restrictions, and other restrictions, and asked that more work be done. I'm coming back to you with the suggestion that it would be more effective, or the most effective way to deal with this ordinance, if the council wishes to go forward, is to perhaps have a council subcommittee work with staff and then drafting an ordinance to be brought back to the council at some undetermined future date.
Not seeing any lights yet. Councilmember Hytopoulos.
Yeah, well, I mean, I agree, and I kind of feel responsible for saying that as well, having kind of poked around in it when it got to the 11th hour, that at this point, I think I said during that meeting, and then I regretted afterwards, I said something like, we can send it back to the CCAC, and that's, no, we can't. There's been a lot of work on it. If we didn't feel it was ready for prime time, we should do some refining work on it to make it into something we think that our colleagues will vote for, and not use any more staff time or committee time than we need to. And so I retract what I said. I'm willing to serve on that committee, and hopefully we can get that done quickly at subcommittee.
Any more lights?
If we form the committee, I'll be happy to join.
So I don't want you all to waste your time, so if you don't see, I'm trying to say this the right way. To me, it didn't seem like there was a lot of community will for this. But so it seemed like when we got to it, there wasn't interest in proceeding. So if it's like, do we really want to work on this for real? Or are we scared? I don't know how to say it the right way. But is it going to be like the committee works on it and then it comes back again? And then again, folks are like, no, we don't want to do this. Councilman
I do feel like we had a plurality that was building there. And it was just that some of us were there and some of us weren't there, and that there were a number of tools, including timelines and time and place, whatever, that weren't in the ordinance that we could float for people. So longer timelines, differentiating between equipment. There was a bunch of things that we were discussing that we could certainly float. And I think that, I know Councilmember Dietz was for the ordinance, I think, as is. Some of us, I think, we're almost there. I think it's worth it, especially if we don't waste any more staff time or to the extent that we have to. I know the city attorney will need to receive it in the end and decide and put it into the format he's comfortable with.
How many folks do we need on the subcommittee?
I don't know if there's a mandatory, but we're suggesting that 3, but you
Okay.
have 2 already.
So do we have one more volunteer? Okay.
I'm not nominate someone else. No, I'll nominate myself.
Okay, so Councilmember Dietz, Councilmember Murawaki, and Councilmember Hytopoulos will be on the subcommittee to look at
was hoping
leaf
that to be-
blowers, the leaf blower ordinance and banning leaf blowers. Okay, now we are on to, oh, we need to make a motion.
Do we, okay, I'll make a motion. Sorry. I move to create an ad hoc council subcommittee to review and recommend an ordinance regulating gasoline powered leaf blowers and appoint the following members of the council, Councilmember Dietz, Councilmember Hatopoulos, and Councilmember Morawaki.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion made by Councilmember Dietz, seconded by Deputy Mayor Quitsland. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I'm supporting it just so it goes forward, but I don't think I'm supportive of any. Okay. Now we are on to authorize the city manager to execute. It must be 8:30. I can't talk anymore after the, yep, 8:39. To execute a collective bargaining agreement with the Bainbridge Island Police Guild.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm pleased to bring to council for request for your authorization is a successor memorandum of understanding contract with our police guild that would be effective January 1 of 2025 and run for 3 years through 2027. Obviously, there's a retroactivity provision here since we're in July of 2025. The police guild represents 23 positions. The base pay that's presented to you is a base pay of 6%. Then for 2026, actual consumer price index with a minimum of 2% to a maximum of 5%. And then for 2027, again, base pay calculated per actual CPI with a minimum of 2% and a maximum of 5%. There is one in the contract. There is also another tier added for vacation accrual for those with 25 years or more of service. There is also a 0.5% to 1% increase for longevity pay for 6 to 10 years of service at a 0.5%, 11 to 15 years of service for 1%, and 16 to 20 years for 1% of service. This has been voted on by the guild and they have accepted it. It's presented to the council for your approval.
Thank you. I'm looking for a motion. Councilmember Morawaki.
I move to authorize the city manager to execute the attached collective bargaining agreement with the Bainbridge Island Police Guild for the period covering January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2027.
Okay.
And speaking to that, just thanks to all the work from the staff and also the representatives of our guild. You're doing a great service, and I like to point out this is retroactive, so you will be getting the increases for the previous 6 months of this year. I think was only fair. And just a big shout out. Every individual I've met from the police department has been professional, and we're just lucky to have this staff serving our city.
Councilmember. Okay, motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And none opposed. Okay, now we are on to communications. And we have one communication from the Race Equity Advisory Committee on amending city policy to allow the appointment of individuals who do not live on Bainbridge Island.
That basically summarizes the request. I received this from the Race Equity Advisory Committee. I feel I have an obligation since this was I guess I'll put air quotes around, an official request from the commission for the council consideration. There is no recommendations for this. The council probably has a variety of options, but at least in terms of the toggle switch option on or off is for you to not advance this or for you to advance this to a meeting to consider what the draft language might be that would be required within the code.
Okay, I don't see any lights, but I'd like to advance it to discuss. Oh, Councilmember Schneider. And now Councilmember Fairchild-Johnson.
I am not in favor of looking outside of our city for representation on volunteer committees. It just seems like it's a slippery slope. We don't know what we're in for. I know that there's always choice on our side at the time when we're looking for members. But as we know from the past, it can get political. It can be awkward. And I just think that we're looking for people who represent our island that live on our island. Thank you.
It's Councilmember Schneider. I'm one of the liaisons to the Race Equity Advisory Committee. And we had a difficult talk about this within the committee because they had asked us to bring this forward as liaisons, and I didn't support it, and I didn't quite know how to bring something forward that I didn't support. So, but in the couple months that have passed, we've had interviews, and there was a candidate who we had thought would be great and had approved, and then she had to move off island. And so the topic came up again. But still, my reasons are a little bit different than Councilmember Schneider for not supporting this. My reason is that Bainbridge Island was at the forefront and a trailblazer in creating a race equity task force at first and then advisory committee. Our neighboring cities have not yet done that. Bremerton did, but then didn't, and it's a gray area at the moment. And if we are allowing members of their community to just join ours, I worry that stops or impedes their creation of something very important of their own doing this important work themselves. So I get where the Race Equity Advisory Committee is coming from, but I can't support that at this time. Councilmember Fantra Johnson.
Well, I support it. Having been founder and member and all of that for Race Equity Committee. The problem, is, I can see the problem both ways, right? But the bigger problem is that there are people who want to be a part of this committee who work on this island and who have been a part of the community for years. And may even have children who go to school here. And so it's not as, nefarious as you think. It's not, there's no, nobody's trying to take over anything politically like that. It's just that they're interested in moving race equity forward on the island. And it's hard to get people of color on this committee because they don't live here. It's as simple as that. And it's something that when it comes to this committee is kind of unique. We can't have an equity committee if we don't have people who are of color or people that represent that. We may have to do something different for this committee. And it would be, just like creating the committee was a trailblazing move, this may have to be another one. Or, because I don't think we can leave it up to us to continue doing what they do, which is to try to move diversity forward. I mean, we can, but people need a group of people to go to talk to give their issues to. And it's easier when people look like you and you talk to them. I do support it.
Oh, I forgot. It's a discuss to discuss. The fact that we are having so much discussion, or is it community? Is it?
No. This is a little bit different because
Oh.
it's not from a council member. This came from a committee and
Yeah.
it came to,
Okay.
it came to me, and because I placed it as a communication.
Okay.
Because there's no other vehicle for this.
Yep.
To come to the council.
And I wasn't trying to stop you. I was just saying, because we had so much discussion, maybe we move it for, put it on an agenda. But if we can discuss it now, Councilmember Hydopoulos.
Yeah, well, I have a different reason, although I think that was actually a very interesting, insightful reason, Mayor, that's thought provoking. I'm not as worried about, I think on any committee or up here or anywhere, we could have, difficult conversations. But I just think it's more of just a basic definitional question of our committees are here to inform our policy as a city. And I think that by definition, they are from our community. And so even though we might have difficulty on other committees, like look, we've had a really difficult time staffing the Historic Preservation Commission with the right type of expertise. We don't always have the expertise that we need for commissions or committees, but they are supposed to be from this community because we are they are our citizens here. So from a definitional perspective, it doesn't work for me.
Councilmember Milwaukee?
Yeah, I'm also uncomfortable with it, primarily because if you look at us, we're an incorporated city, so like a corporation, our citizens are the shareholders. And we're the board of directors. And as I like to remind everybody, we only have one employee, our CEO, the city manager. And so when we swear to uphold our office, we're upholding it for the city of Bainbridge Island. And we represent the citizens of this island, the residents of the city. And so that's really where our focus should be. I was kind of a little uncomfortable by this being something that a certain committee wanted because there was a problem with finding members, but some other committees, as Councilmember Hytopoulos pointed out, has had the same problem. And we really should be representing our city, and that's why I'm fighting, and the rest of us are fighting so hard to have those people who work here be afford to live here. I mean, that's the problem. We just don't have affordable housing for more people to have the opportunity to participate in our community full time. So that's what these advisory committees are for, and I just think we should stay with our current policy.
Okay. Councilmember Dietz and then Deputy Mayor.
Sure, I think we're all chiming in. So I'm afraid I understand the sentiment and I'm not in favor of this. And what I would be in favor, and this wouldn't happen, but let's just say regional committees, you don't have to be on Bainbridge. You just have to be, say, in Kitsap, you know. And Poulsbo doesn't have any race equity committee. So if there was, and this is not a conversation, but if there was a case where we were looking at more of a regional equity group, then it makes a lot of sense. But this is a Bainbridge committee. Okay, so I think we do have to just be very clear about that, but understand that if it ever became a regional group, then it would change as far as the membership. But this is a Bainbridge committee, and it should be Bainbridge people who live here.
Deputy Mayor.
Just briefly, if we were making policy simply for the Race Equity Advisory Committee, that would be one thing, but that's not proper. The general rule, a rule has to apply across the advisory committees, and it is problematic in that regard. I don't think there would be a rush from off island, and that's one reason you might say, well, let's go along with this because it won't be a problem. But I'm just not, we don't have a majority with that approach to things. So I'm reluctantly unable to support the request from the Race Equity Advisory Committee. And when it first came up months ago, I said that. But it is something that they wanted to be heard. They wanted to be considered, and I think we've given it fair consideration.
Yes. Well, with that, thank you all for a great meeting and lots of work this evening, and we are adjourned.